Welcome to the TM1 Performance Podcast. I am your host and I guess the owner of TM1 Performance Podcast, Tom Murphy, and the whole goal of this podcast is to bring you real stories from real people, not just elite athletes. So I suppose you've seen the obviously announcement of the podcast and you might be saying to yourself, what's it all going to be about? So if you know me, you know that my whole life has been dictated and kind of involved in sport, both professionally at an amateur level and also in terms of both playing and coaching wise then as well. So I suppose over the years you can say I've built up quite a few stories, quite a few connections, relationships with all different types of people, clubs, leagues, everything in between. So the whole purpose of this podcast is to bring all of them connections, people and stories to you, the audience. So as you're going to see in the next few weeks, we're going to have some very exciting guests coming up in the podcast and on the podcast, and hopefully them coming on to tell you their story, where they've been, what they've come from and what they're doing right now. So hopefully that will be of a massive interest to you. So to kind of kick things off, all I want to kind of do is give you kind of a brief overview probably of who I am. So who actually is Tom Murphy, who's the host of this podcast. So I suppose if you were to ask me a few years ago who actually is Tom Murphy, I would just refer to, or people would just know me or refer to me as, oh, that's Tom Murphy, the footballer. My whole life I grew up playing football from my schoolboy club in Auckland in Wicklow right the way through professionally over obviously in England with Everton, representing the youth Irish international teams, professionally here in Ireland and Northern Ireland, and now obviously having played in a few of the amateur leagues around Ireland then as well. That would have been the old me. If you were to ask me who I am right now, probably me personally, I would say that I'm Tom Murphy. That's who I am. And I've nothing connected to me. Yes, I obviously have past stories, past experiences, but I'd probably sum up, if you were to ask me how to kind of sum myself up in one piece now, I would say a coach. I coach for a numerous amount of things, probably a lot of people would say, in terms of I obviously am a qualified personal trainer and strength and conditioning coach, where I do that on a day-to-day basis in Pure Fitness Gym in Arklow, in Wicklow, and also then on the side I am a sports psychology or a sports psychology coach or a psychologist, and I work with elite youth international athletes as well as anybody playing the amateur game. So you have quite a wide range of people there that I work with. And in addition to that, I am also a football coach, more specifically a goalkeeping coach. So I have my own goalkeeper academy, the TM1 Performance Goalkeeper Academy, which I run along the southeast of Ireland, but I also coach some club teams then as well on the side of that. So kind of to sum it up, I would classify myself as a coach, but obviously I have loads of past experience there in the numerous different environments that has brought me to kind of this and where I am now today of setting up my own business, setting up different things in terms of the academy, the sports psychology, the personal training business, and obviously now the podcast. So I kind of have tailored this podcast in terms of it's going to be based around a few different topics of each week. What I kind of want to do is get on obviously different guests from different backgrounds, different environments, different ways of life really, and basically ask them who they are, what do they do, where they've come from, and a few different questions like that. And I'm sure we'll have a few stories along the way. So you obviously know who I am now. I suppose if you were to ask me where did I come from, so for me, I grew up in Auckland in Wicklow, so a little village in Wicklow, actually just about 5 minutes outside of that on a farm. So when I was younger, I was always known when playing football up in Dublin as the culture or the bogger, quite literally taken because I lived on a farm. So I suppose for me, I kind of grew up seeing hard work from day one, whether it was with my father running the farm. He's a dairy farmer, so seeing him get up first thing in the morning and getting in last thing at night, or my mother as a school teacher as well, and her again putting in countless hours to improve others. And I suppose if you were to look at that straight away, both of that has paid off at me getting up first thing in the morning, heading into the gym and getting back in last thing at night, having coach kids on the pitch. And like what my mother did, helping people to hopefully see their true potential and achieve their goals, whatever they may be. So that's definitely relayed into what I do now. And I suppose it's quite coincidental how it's all linked into play. So with that, I grew up in a family of four. So I have a younger sister as well. She always got grown up or she always, when she was growing up, was referred to as my younger sister. But to be fair to her, she is more than capable of standing on two legs, to say the least. She grew up playing sport as well, represented a county in Camogie, and is now gone on to establish herself in her career field, especially the field that she's in. Being a female in it isn't easy, but she's already breaking the boundaries and breaking kind of the narratives around it and putting her own stamp of authority on it, which is absolutely amazing to see. So that's kind of our family. We were always quite tight knit. I suppose childhood was spent playing 1,000,001 different sports that I could, doing everything that I could, always outside, which was a good thing to have. If you were to look at probably my whole family, extended family, quite a sporty family, but more so in terms of Gaelic football, hurling, that kind of side of it. Would have had numerous cousins, uncles, all represent different counties in GA, whether it be across hurling or football, whether it was playing or coaching, and some of them winning All Ireland's, Leinster titles along the way as well. So for me to kind of have picked up the soccer was one that wouldn't have been kind of seen, or wouldn't have been like, oh, well, your mother or your father played, you're kind of destined to do it, whatever. So that's kind of where I kind of started and where I came from. And I suppose just throughout the years, I kind of started off at my local schoolboy club in Aughrim, progressed on to Argylltown. From there, I started going away on trials. So I remember being 11, 12 years old, and my first trial was actually Chelsea. And that kind of interest grew from there, and started going away on different trials over to England, which was a great experience. As I say, stories to tell, like being able to go over to Chelsea at 12 years old. I think I went literally the week before my confirmation, so nobody was very too happy with that. But to go over there, it was the week after they had won, I think it was the Champions League, beat Bayern Munich. So that was an amazing experience, being in a team. Only looking back on it in latter years, I was in the same team there when I was on trial as Rian Brewster, Callum Hudson-Odoi, Jonathan Panzo, all these guys that are playing the Premier League now. You don't really realise it until you look back where you were. And that was an amazing experience, definitely for my first trial as well, when I was literally still playing local schoolboy football. So I suppose with that, and from there then I progressed on to play with St. Joseph Boys, or also known as Joey's, in Dublin. And the team I was with there was probably, I would put it as near enough probably the best schoolboy team in Ireland. Definitely for a long time. We won everything we could. We won the DDSL Premier Division that we were in. We won the All Ireland. I think we won the league 2 years in a row. But like from that squad, I mean, player wise, I'd say if we were a squad of 18, I'd say at least 11 or 12 went across to England, had some great careers, and are now either still over in England, one is in Belgium, or back here playing in the League of Ireland in the Premier Division either. So some very good players in that squad. And we just, again, were part of the DDSL Kennedy Cup squad. Again, great experience. One that I do think has probably liquidated over the last few years with the introduction of the younger League of Ireland, but a part of a great squad there where we won the Kennedy Cup. And then from there progressed on to UCD. So was at UCD for a year before eventually going across to Everton. So that's kind of when everything all kicked off. Then in the professional game, they did my junior cert. A week later, I'm on a plane on my way to England to become a professional footballer. So again, I suppose that's kind of when everything went up another level, and you have the so-called footballer name tag associated with you. and that was an amazing experience, one that I look back now as a brilliant experience to be able to have experienced at number one, but also tell stories, give advice to all the young athletes and goalkeepers that I work with now, because I've literally been where they're hoping to be or where they currently are, and to be able to give them advice on it. So I was very fortunate enough to do 3 years at Everton. But to be honest, I did 1 year probably where I shouldn't have done, gone over and back every single week while my junior cert year, and then I did a 2-year scholarship. So with that, it was kind of spent. When I fully moved over, I lived in a place called Prescott, just outside of Liverpool. So it was about 10-15 minutes away from the training ground, which was ideal. And for the 2 years I was there, I was in the so-called, as people would know it, as digs. So you're with house parents and you were with another player. So I was actually with another goalkeeper called Joe Hilton. He was from Manchester. I think he's still now playing with Bradford, if I am correct. Joe's a great lad to know for the 2 years. Probably a bit unusual to have two goalkeepers paired together because they're up against each other, but I think what I kind of seen throughout my time at Everton and throughout the group that I was with, we were such a tight-knit group and everybody got on well, which was really, really important. I suppose with the team and the kind of players I signed with, a lot of players went on to make their debuts for Everton, or play in the professional game for some time. Some of them are still playing now. Probably the most notable would be, obviously, in our 18s team would have been Anthony Gordon, who's now playing for Newcastle. Or there is Fraser Hornby, who is playing out in Germany for SV Darmstadt, I think is the name. I'll probably butcher the pronunciation. So again, I had some great experiences there. I think the highlight would have been for me would have been when training around the first team. Obviously, Wayne Rooney was back at the time. So he would have been kind of the player I looked up to when I first started watching football, being a United supporter for my sins. But to be able to be in and around it with him, obviously Jordan Pickford was the goalkeeper at the time. There was numerous ones there as well. To have trained with Martin Stekelenburg, who obviously played in the World Cup final for the Netherlands, that was surreal as well. When you kind of look back at it, you don't take it in at the time, but when you look back at it, some experiences like that. And then obviously being in and around it with the Irish lads. In terms of when I was there was Darren Gibson, there was James McCarthy, who was playing for Ireland. Younger lads obviously would have been the likes of Sam Byrne, Matthias Huelt, and then obviously the main man, Seamus Coleman. And I suppose it's a case, and I've always been able to reiterate it, whatever you hear about Seamus Coleman in terms of genuine and everything, 1,001% can back it up. I remember I got injured, and literally a week later he suffered the unfortunate leg break against Wales, and we spent the whole summer together rehabbing in the gym every single day. Kind of a bit mad, the two Paddies here, over the summer, listening to Ed Sheeran and all in the gym. Bit of a funny one, but definitely an experience in itself. And Seamus, to be fair to him, was an absolute gentleman, welcoming me into the club on the first day when he heard that there was an Irish lad signing, and looked out for me ever since. So I can't thank him enough for that. But as I say, anything you ever hear about me is the most genuine character and probably professional athlete I've ever met to date. So I suppose from Everton then, kind of things progressed on. I got an unfortunate injury while I was over there, but I suppose looking back, I could say maybe did that stop and stall the progress that I was at, because I was going very well. But I was very lucky enough to get the best of the best surgeons. I was literally, the injury that I got, I was given a 20% chance of kicking a ball again, playing professional football again. But I was very lucky to be in the environment where I got the best surgeon and was built in on rehab with the best physios, medical team on a day-to-day basis. Yes, it was tough, but I was very fortunate to be able to come back from the injury and play to the extent I have again, thank God. So with that, I suppose then from there, once I got released by Everton, I came back to Ireland, purely with the main focus of actually getting back into education alongside football. For most people, it's a case of how can they kind of stay in the professional game and for as long as they can, or get that first professional contract, next move, whatever it could have been. I could have went that way, turned down a few options around all of that, on purpose probably more so, in terms of I kind of sat down with my parents, had spoke to sports psychologists, stuff like that, and made a conscious decision that if I was coming back to Ireland, I was going to come back and look to play part-time while gaining a college education. So that's where I was lucky enough I was able to come back. Came to UCD for a year and a half, That gave me a chance to do an access course to get into college. And from there, I was fortunate enough to gain access to Portobello Institute in Dublin. Again, can't recommend the guys over there enough. Did everything for me. I did a 3-year sports psychology degree, so that's obviously how I'm a sports psychologist now. Was very fortunate to have done that, especially the route I went wasn't conventional, but they did everything that they could for me to help me get the chance to get on the course. Obviously, at my time at UCD, that's where I had my first taste of senior football. I was in the squad, had literally just got promoted from the first division to the Premier Division, so I was in literally from the start of the season, in and around the squad, whether it was on the bench, match day squads, and then I finally got my chance to play. My debut came against Waterford, I think it was around August time. We lost 2-1. Then I was able to manage a few more appearances that season. Want to know, obviously, I'd say a few people will remember or link me to it, was the biggest actually League of Ireland loss in history. We lost 10-1 to Bows one night. One of them ones where I think you look back at it and you take a lot of lessons from it and how cruel football can be sometimes. So that was definitely one of the biggest games I played with, but definitely the biggest loss I've been involved with as well. I suppose from there then I eventually stepped away from UCD once I decided to go to Portobello College and went down to Wexford. Had a great season there, won Player of the Year. That was actually throughout the COVID season. It seems like a lifetime ago now, speaking about COVID and everything like that, but it was a case of being there and just playing games. I was able to play week in, week out, even though the season was disrupted and a little bit shorter. I gained so much experience from there, being involved in the men's team game where results matter, and playing in front of crowds for some games, obviously with no crowds for other games, which was a bit unusual, and just having the chance to play against some top teams. Like we played Galway when they were in the first division, who were full time at the time. So some things like that were a really good experience. And then I suppose from there, it was the downside of football. So I went from winning Player of the Season 1 year to literally getting dropped the season straight after, in the first game of the season. Bit of a mad one. Look, at these things happen. This is football. And from there, I actually stepped out of the game for about probably 2 or 3 months. So that, again, the way League of Ireland works, that was probably around March or April time. Couldn't obviously sign for anybody else till around June, July time. So I was kind of out of the game for 2-3 months, and then took the decision to actually, again, with the whole focus and goal around playing football, I signed for Bangor in the Leinster Senior League. So again, everybody look at it and they were like, how'd you go from winning Player of the Year 1 year to dropping down and playing a league technically below the first division in Ireland and probably back into the so-called amateur game? But for me, it was a conscious decision where I just wanted to get back enjoying my football and play as many games as I could. And that's where I saw the opportunity arise at Bangor. Now look, I was involved with a great group there, very, very professional, some top players, and obviously in the top league of Leinster Senior League. I don't think people actually realise the quality that's in it, especially that top league in Leinster Senior League, where there's obviously some ex-pros and some obviously lads that have just bounced out of the kind of League of Ireland and stuff like that. And the quality itself is probably, some of the teams, to be completely honest with you, are probably better than some of the teams in the first division in Ireland, or the League of Ireland. It's just a matter of just obviously players not having the time or not being able to commit to full-time football or to be able to travel on Monday, Wednesday, Friday nights, whatever it may be. So to play in that league that year was brilliant, because even though I was obviously mainly playing with the first team, I obviously played across the second and the third team as well. So I think at the back end of that season, I played 50, 60 first team games, which was exactly what I needed at 19, 20 years old, like especially as a goalkeeper. So I was looking then, come at being 20, 21 years old, and I had almost 100 senior games across the Leinster Senior League, First Division and Premier Division in Ireland. So you could almost say the top 3 divisions in Ireland. So for me, that was a massive experience. Alongside all of that, I suppose that's when, coincidentally, I started, in terms of, as I was finishing up my college course, I started the goalkeeping academy first off, and that began to grow. So there I was doing mainly one-to-one stuff, and then working with a few of the local leagues and teams. And from there then I actually did my personal training course with Image Fitness Ireland. So I kind of grew a fondness for fitness, strength and conditioning, nutrition, all that kind of stuff, especially over COVID, kind of when I had to look after it myself and I had probably more time to do it. So there was a case of where I gained my knowledge, gained my qualifications, and built on from there really. And from that kind of, I started creating my own business. I took the plunge then at 21 to set up my own business fully and properly. TM1 Performance, where I had obviously the goalkeeping academy, the personal training and strength and conditioning. That was at that time. I hadn't fully qualified as a sports psychologist yet, so I obviously hadn't introduced that side of it. So that at 21, I literally packed in everything, packed in my job, well, my part-time job more so than anything, and started working for free. A bit of a mad one, alright, because obviously I was getting no money from playing football because I was at an amateur level, and I actually started working in a gym completely for free and took the plunge really and went headfirst into it, took the risk on myself. And I suppose that's why probably most businesses start, most entrepreneurs start, all kind of that kind of stuff. So that's where I was. So over time then I grew my personal training business. Obviously started to get an income from the gym then as well, so that's kind of what kicked off there. The goalkeeping academy got even busier as well, and then all on top of that, I went and I signed my first professional contract in football. So I did a couple of weeks actually with Armagh City in the Northern Irish League, and we played a few pre-season games, and I suppose, look, I personally felt I did relatively well there. Even despite all the travelling and stuff like that, and it must have kind of alerted a few clubs, because from there then I signed for Crusaders in the Northern Irish Premiership. Did I know anything about Crusaders before I got a call or anything? No clue. Had I heard that there was any interest? No. It was literally, I think, 11 o'clock one night. I just got in from coaching, literally gone to lie down in bed, and the phone was ringing, and it was the Crusaders manager, Stephen Baxter. And literally by the next day or the next 2 days, I was up sitting down at the stadium with him, having a chat, sorting out my contract and signing. And it kind of went from there. That was obviously signing my first fully professional contract, obviously back getting paid to play football, technically a professional footballer, playing in the top league in Northern Ireland. And to be completely honest with you, my time there with Crusaders, unbelievable. One of the best dressing rooms I'd ever been with. And being in some ex-pros obviously in there, lads that had played in Scotland, played in England, played for Northern Ireland. And to be there at 21, 22 years old was kind of a blessing in disguise, because I was back in full-time football, being able to train day to day and back doing what I enjoyed. And I think I kind of built up that maturity probably that I didn't have when I was younger, whereas I had obviously suffered highs and lows of football, but I was so open to learning. It was obviously back with a full-time goalkeeping coach, learning from an ex-pro in Johnny Tuffy, who is probably the best goalkeeper I've ever worked with. Any questions I ever had, answer them straight away. Anything I ever needed, would do straight away for me. And I suppose, and I always said, Johnny, I can't thank him enough for everything he did for me at Crusaders at the time. But I suppose that was a great experience there at Crusaders. Obviously, having known nothing really about the Northern Irish League, to go up there and to experience it firsthand, to experience the grounds, the infrastructures, the kind of history of the league and how big some of the teams are and the supports there, was amazing. Really was. To live in Belfast obviously was experience as well. I was very fortunate for the first 6 months, I was lucky enough, I had a guy on loan from Full City that I was living with. It was Macaulay Snellgrove. Some of the stories I could tell you about him, I don't think he would want me to, but let's just say Macca at that time had a good lot to learn in terms of definitely cooking wise. The only person I know to have put a microwave meal in the oven, burn it, and then put it back in the fridge to cool it off to hopefully harden that you could eat then. But I'll leave that one to you, Macca. But then I was very fortunate then as well to have another dub in the team, or a dub in the team in terms of Dean Ebbe. And myself and Dean did a lot of travelling together that season, and when I tell you the laughs that we had in that car up and back from games, some of the journeys and stuff like that was absolutely brilliant. And to kind of build, and I don't think people understand the friendships that you build in football and how close you can get with people and the connections you can build. And definitely with Dino that year, it was absolutely brilliant. Obviously Dean had been a professional footballer for a few years, both in Ireland and in Wales with TNS, and up in Scotland as well, and some of the stories he had, but the advice that he had as well was brilliant for me. And From there then, I suppose we had a brilliant year, won the Irish Cup. But looking back on it now, probably one of my biggest ever regrets. I had a 2-year contract there, stepped away for a year to go to Newry, purely just to play. Should I have probably stayed? Yes, because we had qualified for Europe to get the experience. I know I was primarily a number 2, but looking on, I know it's hindsight, there was a few goalkeeping injuries in the second season, so would I have probably got a few more opportunities? Probably. But look, unfortunately I didn't have a crystal ball that I could look into and see, so that's where you live and you learn. But look, I'd made the decision to move down to Newry, at the time a bit closer to home, and gave me more time to probably grow the business as well, because we didn't train as much. And it was probably at a time where I noticed the business was starting to get busier and busier. There was more demand and longer days, nearly fully booked and stuff like that. So we took the decision to sign with Newry, still in the same division, still in the Premiership. They had just come up the year before, stayed up. So we went in there, and it was one of them ones where it was definitely another experience in football, is how I would sum it up. Obviously going in, coming from Crusaders, going in with an experienced keeper in terms of who they already had there, and Stephen Maguire, been there for years, had been with them through promotions, relegations, stuff like that. So that was definitely one to experience as a young keeper coming into that kind of environment. It's definitely into kind of an older dressing room as well, compared to probably what I was used to, and lads that had been at the club for years, had experienced it all. And look, it was a tough time. Didn't actually start the first, I think, 6 or 7 games. Then eventually got in. Literally first game for the club was against Larne, who were the reigning champions at Larne. So that was kind of a good one to get straight into, because I think it was the next 3 were Larne, something like Larne, Glentoran and Linfield, who are the 3 biggest clubs in the league. So to play against them straight away was definitely thrown into the deep end, but one I really, really enjoyed. I think that was the big one for me. I was enjoying playing week in, week out, testing myself at that level against elite level players, playing in front of crowds, while also learning so much during that time as well. Look, it was a difficult time then as well. It was chopping and changing. We were kind of in for a few games, out for a few games, back in for a few games. And what kind of happened from there was, again, business was really, really busy. I was kind of feeling that I was burning the candle from both ends, and eventually what ended up happening is it just crashed. Everything just crashed. A few things happened in my personal life, and it all felt like everything crashed all at once. And I remember playing a game on a Friday night, and literally as the game was coming to an end, and after the game finished, walking back into the change room, I said in my head, that's me done. I literally got into the car, heart was racing, I was sweating, and this was in the middle of November, and rang my dad, who I always would after every game, and remember just being like, that's me done, I'm done, I don't want to play again. Even though I was literally playing week in, week out at this time, top leagues, professional footballer, getting paid, and I was like, no, I can't do it anymore. So that's when I literally went in, met the manager that night, and said I was done. That was me, and that was that. That was kind of the last time I actually ever played professional football. I remember the game, it was against Glenavon at home for Newry on a Friday night. It was freezing cold, and I think we lost 3-0. So that was the last time I played professional football. But from there, I suppose it was definitely a difficult time for me at first, but after that, and I think it was a case of I started to realise my true identity then. I know that sounds as cliche as it sounds, but I had so kind of got fixated in this whole persona and personality of as Tom the footballer, Tom Murphy the footballer. That's all I was known. Everybody would straight away ask me, how's the football going, how's this going? And I felt like I got wound up in the world of it, and that's where it kind of just took over completely. Like, I couldn't have a conversation without speaking about football. And I think what I've learned over the years, more so than anything, is I don't really watch football. Wouldn't sit down and watch a live football match, not even football highlights. Don't really like talking about it too much. Do I enjoy being back around it? Yeah, for sure. But for me now, it's where I get the enjoyment so much more out of now is actually the kids that I coach, them telling me about their football, how they're getting on, how things are going, what they're achieving. That's where I get the enjoyment, and that's when I enjoy talking about it compared to myself now. Obviously, I have the experience of it and I can feed back on that and tell stories and give advice. But to be so involved in it that I don't think I could see myself back in that environment in a playing capacity anyway. Obviously, if something changed for sure and it was suited me, but I'm definitely in the side now, and kind of that time gave me a chance to reflect on it and probably take that step back that I needed. And that definitely allowed me to probably transition in terms of, I then went in that period of time where I stopped playing football for about 2 to 3 months. I went and got my UEFA B licence and my UEFA C licence in terms of my C licence outfield, and then my B licence goalkeeping wise. And that even grew my hunger further for coaching. And that's definitely something that I really, really am so passionate about, probably since then and furthermore now, because from then I kind of saw such a massive growth in the academy. Obviously, when you're playing professional football and kind of the CV I built up and stuff like that, you build a name for yourself. But I was starting to feel that I was kind of breaking that narrative and starting to build my name first, a name for myself around the coaching side of everything rather than just the playing side of it. So I was being respected more as a coach than anything else. So that's what kind of kickstarted all of that for me. From there then, kind of the last few years, I've just been playing in and around the Leinster Senior League. I went first back to my local club, Arkletown, so that was kind of a full circle moment from being there as a 13-year-old, going back at kind of 22 years old, and was able to help the lads kind of stay up the first year. I came back in January, and then the second year we kickstarted the season, did really, really well, beyond expectations, to be completely honest. And we were top of the table nearly come Christmas time. Some stuff kind of fell off towards the end of it. I suppose then the January, I think it was January 23, 24 maybe, I had the opportunity to actually sign for Kerry. Went down, met the lads, met the club, met the team. This was, I think, a year or two after they'd just been in the League of Ireland, so they were nearly established by then, and literally had agreed a deal and everything, and then it all fell through. Literally had said my goodbyes to the lads at Arklow, and yeah, that all fell through, and that kind of put the nail in the coffin for me. I was like, something, I'm done with kind of this so-called professional football after that, because you're promised the sun, moon and stars. You have everything lined up, set up. I mean, we had literally sorted houses, we had sorted accommodation, wages. I was going to move my academy down there, days I was going to coach, X, Y, Z, everything done, and it was pulled at the last minute. And from there then again, I decided to take another step out of football. Was out for a month or two and then got back into the Leinster Senior League with Lucan. Again, I suppose I had a great experience there with the lads, great change room, definitely what I needed at that time just to get back enjoying football, some great characters there. Again, some mad stories, should I tell them? Probably not, I'll leave them to the lads themselves, but a great experience there. And I suppose that again, stepping back again, allowed me to grow my academy even further to more locations, work with more goalkeepers, work with more teams in terms of S&C, strength and conditioning, and the sports psychology as well. So that's where I kind of find myself today. I am now playing in the Wexford League with Ferns United. This is where I live. I bought my own house back end of last year at 24 years old. Probably one of the top achievements that I've ever done. To be completely honest, through my own hard work. Did I get any handouts? Not a chance. I wish I did, but I didn't. My parents were great in that sense of always teaching me that it's your own hard work, you make your own way. Don't be looking for handouts or somebody to help you in elsewhere. It's done on your own back. So that's definitely what helped me. So kind of where I am today in football, and I suppose what I spoke about just there, I am now playing for Ferns in the Wexford League. Absolutely love it. Love the lads, love the group, love the club, love the area, love everything about it. It's been absolutely brilliant since I moved here last July, and it's really, really good. Really, it's different, but one of them ones exciting because I'm excited to see where it goes. And with that, it's allowed me obviously to expand the academy more. So now I'm covering the whole of the southeast. I have 4 different locations, working with upwards to kind of 60-70 goalkeepers per week, right the way from 6 years old to senior elite goalkeepers then as well. It's allowed me to grow my sports psychology business to where I am in terms of working with professional athletes, amateur athletes across a range of different sports, not just soccer, not just GAA. And with that then as well, it has allowed me to work with countless amounts of people, hundreds of people on a weekly basis in the gym, whether it's in terms of personal training, whether it's in terms of strength and conditioning with teams, or simply just helping people along their journey. And to be honest, as I said at the start, that's what gives me joy now. Probably full circle moment, being able to help people see their true potential in themselves and help them along their way to achieve their goals and their targets. Whether that's in the gym or on a pitch or just mentally wise, either in terms of the sports psychology. So I suppose my journey is definitely unique. It's been different. If you ask 12, 13-year-old me, I would have just wanted to be football. But looking now, I can't thank anybody enough for what they've done to me to get me to where I am today. I suppose it's a case of, if I put all this down on paper, what I've done, what I've witnessed, what I've experienced, what I've achieved to date at 25 years old, if I gave this to 13-year-old me, I do think he might choose this one for what he's experienced and everything in between it. So to be able to get to where I am today, the achievements, the kind of stories I have, the experiences, that's what's worth its weight more in gold to me than anything else. And to be able to help other people now along their way to hopefully achieving their potential, that's the true part to me now that has definitely kind of materialized over the last few years and has given me more joy than anything else. I think I could look back at it and I could look at all these medals and jerseys with their name on the back and experiences and stuff like that. That's great to experience and stuff like that, but for me, it's all about kind of trying to create an environment, trying to create a facility, a service, trying to create something for people where they can come in and, as I say, and can't reiterate enough, to see the true potential in themselves, to push themselves and hopefully to achieve their goals, whatever that may be. So that's what gives me my true fulfillment right now, and that's what brought me to where I am today. And I suppose it kind of rounds it off nicely in terms of that's what I want to do with this whole podcast, is bring stories like this, bring kind of people from different walks of life of what they've experienced, where they were, where they've been, and where they are now, more or less, and what they've experienced along the way, the lessons they've learned, what they've kind of said, what they've taught along the way, and probably what they'd leave people with and what's their best piece of advice and stuff like that. And that's what I'm really looking forward to kind of building on from this first episode of kind of an introduction, and hopefully bring that to you on a hopefully weekly basis. So I suppose this is me signing out. I'm hoping to get this up on YouTube and then obviously on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the good stuff. So if you can, give it a listen, give it a like, share, whatever you do. And hopefully this is the first of many episodes. And I suppose with podcasts, you're supposed to have like a signing off thing, or you're supposed to have a closing saying. And I kind of thought about this the last few days. And for me, it's definitely one of the ones that I always looked into. I'm going to leave you with, thanks for listening. This has been the TM1 Performance Podcast with your host, Tom Murphy. And always remember to work hard and dream big.